Hello everyone. So today we are going to revise chapter number 2, Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom. This extract has been taken from the autobiography written by Nelson Mandela himself. This chapter is from the book First Light, Class 10th. So here we go. We all have heard a lot about Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela was a South African anti-apartheid revolutionary political leader, and he was a philanthropist who served as president of South Africa from 1994 to 1999. And he was the first black president of this country. We all have studied a lot about the apartheid rule in our SST, where we got to know that people were discriminated on the basis of their color. And we can also know that 3 countries named below, we have to find out that which country has faced this. And yes, of course, it was South Africa. You can see Mandela became South Africa's first black president. Now, this particular cutting has been taken from the newspaper which was printed on 10th May 1994. What does it talk about? Nelson Mandela has become South Africa's first black president after more than 3 centuries of white rule. Mr. Mandela's African National Congress, that is ANC party, won 252 of the 400 seats in the first democratic election of South Africa's history. The inauguration ceremony took place in the Union Building Amphitheatre in Pretoria today, attended by politicians and dignitaries from more than 150 countries around the world. Never, never again will this beautiful land experience the oppression of one by another, said Mandela in his address. Jubilant scene on the streets of Pretoria followed the ceremony with blacks, whites, coloreds celebrating together. More than 1 lakh South African men, women, and children of all race sang and danced with joy. So this portion was the cutting from a newspaper that informed about the oath-taking ceremony of the new president of South Africa. Nelson Mandela was born on 18th July 1918 in South Africa, and he died on 5th December 2030 at the age of 95 years in South Africa itself. This chapter is an extract from Nelson Mandela's autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom. You will get to know in this chapter that South Africans were treated like slaves by their white rulers. Their freedom were curtailed by unjust laws. Illegally, they were suppressed, exploited, and humiliated by the whites. After decades of struggle and sacrifice, South Africans were eventually liberated. Finally, they got freedom from 3 centuries of colonial rule, that is the white rule. Nelson Mandela was elected the president of first democratically elected non-racial government. So this chapter will briefly describe the inaugural ceremonies. You will get to know the experiences and the celebration, that was the inaugural ceremony, and his inaugural address. So what were the important statements given by Nelson Mandela in his inaugural address as the president of South Africa? 10th May dawned bright and clear. For the past few days, I had been pleasantly beset by the dignitaries and world leaders who were coming to pay their respect before the inauguration. The inauguration would be the largest gathering ever of international leaders on South African soil. So this is an extract taken from it, where Mandela is saying that when the sun rose, when it was the morning, it was a new morning for this country. And people and dignitaries from all over the world were coming on this land to pay respect before the inauguration. This inauguration would be facing the largest gathering of the international leader on South African soil ever. The ceremony took place in lovely sandstone amphitheater formed by the Union buildings in Pretoria. So this was the place where this oath-taking ceremony, where this inaugural address was going to take place. For decades, this has been the seat of white supremacy. So we are talking about the colonial rule, and this place was a seating and discussion place for them. And now it was the site of a rainbow gathering. So why here he has mentioned rainbow gathering? Rainbow gathering means there was no discrimination between the people on the basis of their color. People of all the color, white, black, and any other color, was sitting together. Okay, and they were there to welcome or to start the first non-racial government, which was also the first democratical government of this country. On that lovely autumn day. So why here he has mentioned it as the autumn day? Because it was the time when the bad rule, when the exploiting rule of colonial was about to come to an end, and the beautiful rule of democratic government was about to start. I was accompanied by my daughter, Zinani. On the podium, Mr. de Klerk was first sworn as the second deputy president. So he is trying to make us clear that how the ceremony took place. So the first one to take the sworn is as second deputy president was Mr. K. Clark. Moving ahead, then Thabo Mbeki was sworn in as the first deputy president. When it was my turn, I pledged to obey and unfold the Constitution and to devote myself to the well-being of the Republic and its people. So this was the statement taken by Nelson Mandela. He took this pledge that he is going to obey the constitutional rule and he's going to devote his complete life for the well-being of the Republic and its people. To the assembled guest and the watching world, I said. So let's see what he said. Today, all of us do, by our presence here, confer glory and hope to newborn liberty. So why he's calling this liberty as the newborn? Because this was after a long time and today it was the first day of the liberal country. Out of the experience of an extraordinary human disaster, he has mentioned this racial discrimination as an extraordinary human disaster because no country has faced such kind of exploitation and um, discrimination on the basis of color. That's why he has mentioned it as extraordinary. Must be born a society of which all humanity will be proud. And now he's sure enough that from today onwards, this country is going to create a new society where all the humanity will be proud of it. We who are, so he continued saying, who were outlawed not so long ago, have today been given the rare privilege to host to the nation of the world on our own soil. So here, Mr. Mandela was proud enough to welcome this day for their nation. We thank all of our distinguished international guests for having come to take possession with the people of our country of what is, after all, a common victory for justice, for peace, and for human dignity. So he extended his gratitude to all the distinguished international guests who all came there to be a part of this grand celebration because it was not only the victory of a party, but it was actually the victory of justice, peace, and human dignity. Moving ahead, we have at least achieved our political emancipation. We pledge ourselves to liberate all our people from the continuing bondage of poverty, deprivation, suffering, gender, and other discrimination. So while taking the inaugural oath, he takes the pledge that he is going to remove all the restrictions which were there on the freedom of the people. And he's going to make people get rid of poverty, deprivation, where they can have the rightful benefits and all these sufferings, whatever they have been suffering for the last 2, 3 decades, and there would be no discrimination on the basis of color, gender, or any other. Never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another. So he is experiencing, he's sharing that never from today onwards, my country is going to face such kind of disaster, human disaster in the coming time. The sun shall never set on slow, glorious, a human achievement. Let freedom reign. God bless Africa. And this was the end of his speech. So I guess a few moments later, we all lifted our eye in the way of a spectacular array of South African jets. So there was an air show play where the Air Force, where the jets and airplanes were showing their performances in the sky. And that was spectacular. Everyone was looking up to the sky and they were appreciating. Jets, helicopters, and troops carrying roads in the perfect formation over the Belair Union building. It was not only a display of pinpoint precision and military force. So this performance was not only a performance that was given by the military force, but it was an expression that now the military of this country is with the government. And this was an expression. They are with their government in the support of the country. Only a moment before, the highest general of the South Africa Defence Force and Police, their chest buckled with ribbon and medaled from days gone by, saluted me and pledged their loyalty. So he's saying that when he was coming up to the podium, he was being saluted by the highest general of South African Defence Force. And that was not just a salute, but it was again the expression of loyalty. I was not unmindful of the fact that not so many years before, they would not have saluted but arrested me. And he remembered that time when he would have been arrested by these people for his different kind of behavior where he was against the apartheid rule. And the same person is now saluting him. Finally, a chevron of Impala jets left a smoke trail of black, red, and green, blue, and gold of the new South African flag. And then the jet flew over the building and it released the smoke of black, red, green, blue, and gold of the color that was actually the color of new South African flag. The day was symbolized for me by the playing of our two national anthem. This was the best incident. You can see you can never forget this moment when two national anthems, one was of whites and one was of blacks, were played together and everybody sang both the national anthems together. Although they were not aware about the wordings of those national anthems, but they supported. And Mr. Mandela was sure enough that after a few years, both are going to remember the wordings of each other's national anthem. On the day of inauguration, I was overwhelmed with a sense of history. In the first decade of the 20th century, a few years after the bitter Anglo-Boer War and before my own birth, the white singed people. So he's talking about the time when the white rule started in his country. Okay, it was before his birth. And they all white-skinned people got together, they patched together, and they had a difference and erected a system of racial domination against the dark-skinned people of their own land. The structure they created formed the basis of one of the harshest, most inhuman society the world have ever known. Now, in the last decade of 20th century and my own eighth decade as a man, so he's talking about his time, that system had been overturned forever and replaced by one that recognized the right and freedom of all people, regardless of color, their skin. So he's talking about the experience when he was not there, And when he was young, that white people were discriminating, humiliating the blacks, and to the time when everybody was considered equal. That day had come about through the unimaginable sacrifices of thousands of my people. So he is not taking the credit of this day alone. He is devoting this day to all those people, all those thousands of people who have sacrificed their life, all those people who have suffered, but courageously they have never given up. I was simply the sum of all those African patriots who had gone before me. So he wanted to actually express that it was not only he who has initiated against this racial discrimination, but many leaders, many African patriots have taken the step before, and he has all their devotions and patriotism. I was pained that I was not able to thank them. So he was feeling bad because they were not there to experience this beautiful day in the history of South Africa. The policy of apartheid created a deep and lasting wound in my country and my people. All of us will spend many years, if not generations. So he actually wants to explain that the pain, that's the hurt they have experienced during this apartheid rule, it will take a bit of time to forget those days, remove those dark memories from their mind. But the decades of oppression and brutality had another unintended effect, and that was that it produces the Oliver Tambos, the Walter Cecilus, and Chief Lithosis. So he actually wants to say that these people were very general people. It was all the discrimination, the hurt, the exploitation that created them. Courage, wisdom, and generosity, that their like may never be known again. He actually wants to express in the later chapter that he was also a very common man just like him. For him, freedom was very different. When he was a small child, for freedom was flying in the sky, running here and there, enjoying the fields of his father. But when he grew older, for him, freedom was choosing his favorite subjects, studying in the way he wanted. Later, for him, freedom was to fulfill all the needs and desire of his country. But when he actually grew older, he realized that his country people are facing discrimination, and he can never ever be a good father, a good husband, a good brother, a good son, unless and until he is not able to be a good patriotist for his country. In life, every man has twin obligation. He has very clearly explained that every human being has two responsibility, one for the country and one for the family. And generally, if we talk about in a very common way, everyone chooses first responsibility as his family. But you cannot fulfill the responsibility of your family even unless you are free in the country. He expresses his childhood time when he was experiencing the freedom, but slowly, gradually, when he grew older, he actually realized that he is not free. I slowly saw that not only was I not free, but my brothers and sisters were also not free. So that was the moment when he decided to stand with his brothers and sister and raise his voice against the apartheid rule. And as a result, he was standing there on the podium of this building, taking the oath as the first Black president of South Africa. So I think this chapter was basically very much related to the historical event of the end of apartheid rule, and it might have guided you in a very better way. This chapter basically tells us that the most important trait or most important aspect of our life is our freedom. You cannot enjoy any luxury of life if you are not free. So what first has to be done is you need to protect, you need to gain freedom in your life. So that's all for today. I guess you all have understood the chapter. So we are going to meet again. Goodbye for now. Thank you.